I'm Emily Mashak, and you're listening to Tuned Into NoCo, Town Square Media's show that lets you know what matters in NoCo. And I'm talking today with Judy Calhoun, the Director of Development at Pathways, about their upcoming 19th annual A Vintage Affair event. So thank you so much for coming in.
Well, thank you, Emily. And I'm only disappointed that I can't be saying it's the 20th annual because we didn't host this event last year. So we're excited to be back in person at the Gardens on Spring Creek on Sunday, September 12th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's going to be lovely. I was at the Gardens just recently, and they are beautiful. And thanks to our presenting sponsor, Wilbur's Total Beverage, and their vendors, there will be just an amazing selection of wines and beers to taste, some delicious food, a small silent auction, and guests will learn a little bit more about our new inpatient care center as well, which is what the event is benefiting.
That is so awesome. Well, I'm glad you get to have this event this year after how 2020 was going. But before we get into the event itself, for those who are unfamiliar, can you tell me a little bit more about Pathways and how did it come to be here in Northern Colorado?
So Pathways has been here in Northern Colorado for over 40 years. We were founded in 1978, and we provide hospice, palliative care, and grief and loss support services for both residents of Larimer and Weld County. Our hospice services right now serve over 1,200 patients and their families and loved ones a year. So really, we are the largest provider of hospice care in Northern Colorado.
Yeah. And how did you find your way to the organization?
So I was, before coming here, I was the CEO at Larimer Humane Society. Decided it was a good time for a little bit of a change for me and had this opportunity come up. And I'm just so excited to be part of the capital campaign that is building our new inpatient care center. It's not often that as a member of a nonprofit community, you get to build two such critical buildings in our community. And I had the opportunity to build the new shelter at Larimer Humane Society, and now I'm having the opportunity to have a role in building this new inpatient care center that will be able to serve more families in a much more home-like setting.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, now let's get into the event. I know you touched on it a little bit. We have a lot going on.
Yep.
But what do our listeners need to know?
So what they need to know, Sunday, September 12th, Gardens on Spring Creek, from 5 to 7 p.m. This is a wine and beer tasting event. We will have appetizers, so some wonderful food to kind of help counteract a little bit of that imbibing. It is presented by Wilbur's Total Beverage. This is our 19th event. Had we held the event in 2020, it would be our 20th anniversary event. So should be really exciting. Tickets are $80, and they can be purchased from our website. If you go to www.pathways-care.org and then /AVA for a vintage affair, or if you simply go to our website and click on events, you can drop down to the vintage affair page, and there's a buy tickets button.
And you said there would be a silent auction too, right?
Yes. So there'll be a silent auction. Typically, a number of our vendors who are supplying the wine and beer also donate some of the silent auction items. We will have the famous 99 bottles of wine and 99 bottles of beer items to bid on. So if you've got a group of friends that you want to split those with, this is your chance to get a great variety of either wine or beer and just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, this sounds like it's going to be so much fun. And like you mentioned, it's for a great cause. It will benefit the inpatient care center. Can you tell me more about that and what the vision is for it?
Yes. So we just broke ground earlier this spring. It will be a standalone inpatient care center. Some people may have heard the term hospice house. if they live in other parts of the country. It will have 12 beds, 12 rooms for patients. And typically, these are patients who we are struggling to have their symptoms under control at home or where they're living. So with hospice, we typically want to be providing that care in the home where the patient lives. So their actual home, an assisted living facility, sometimes a skilled nursing facility. But there are those occasions when symptom management becomes just too challenging in that environment, especially at home or in a skilled nurse or in a assisted living facility. And an inpatient care center is needed. So we're able to make changes in meds within minutes. In the home setting, sometimes it can take hours to get those changes made. So it's severe pain. Sometimes for our patients, it's real severe anxiety, especially in some of our patients who have dementia. That anxiety level can just really kind of skyrocket. So helping to bring that under control and other severe symptoms. The nice thing about this facility is that it is standalone. So it's a much more kind of home-like setting. Think a kind of mountain lodge. We've had for the last 20 years or so 6 beds at McKee Medical Center for our inpatient care unit, and it's been wonderful. We've been able to provide incredible care, but it's still in a hospital environment. And so this will be twice the size, 12 beds, and much more home-like, as well as a lot of space for families and friends to gather. That's also kind of a challenge sometimes at our current space. So
Right.
It's going to be a real resource for our community as our community grows and as our older population grows as well. We see an increased need for hospice care and also for this inpatient care when it's needed.
Right. And obviously, hospice care is not something that's necessarily fun to talk about, but clearly it's great that we have this resource in our community. In your time with Pathways, how have you really seen it impact the Northern Colorado community? Do you have anything that stuck out to you over the years?
Yes. So over the last 6 months, it's been a great 6 months. I will say that talking, especially with some of the patients' families after the patients passed away, it warms your heart when they talk about the care their loved one received. I talked with one person whose husband was in our care, and he did have to go to the inpatient care center at McKee for a few days. We were able to get his symptoms under control, and then he came home, and that's where he passed away. And she was so grateful because that's what he wanted, and that's what the family wanted for him. We really believe that hospice is much more about living and choosing how you want to live the remainder of your life, and also about kind of those family and friend bonds as well. Because of the kind of work that takes place during the time a patient is in hospice, we also have social workers, chaplains, and that kind of psychological, social support, as well as ongoing grief and loss support for both our patients' families and loved ones, as well as community members. So to take advantage of our grief and loss support services, you don't have had to have had a family member or friend as a patient. There are plenty of people, especially over the last year and a half, who've suffered just tremendous grief and tremendous loss, and we can help with that. And those are some of the things. I think back to that conversation with that widow and how grateful she was that her husband was able to come home, which was his desire. There's so many stories. They bring tears to my eyes even thinking about them. In talking with families, it really is kind of incredible the work our staff do.
Yeah, well, I'm sure some of our listeners are hearing this and probably can relate to this, whether they have a loved one who might need hospice care or perhaps they recently lost a loved one. How can they reach out to Pathways?
So if they are thinking that either they or a loved one might need hospice care, probably the first thing is to talk with their doctor about what stage they are in their illness. But they can also reach out to us. They can always call us at 970-663-3500 and talk to somebody in our admissions department. They also can go on our website and read a little bit more about hospice care and decide whether or not that might be right for them. For some people with severe or chronic illnesses that may not be in a position for hospice care, palliative care may be the right thing for them, and we also provide palliative care. So hospice care is done when a physician essentially certifies that a patient is within the last 6 months of their life. That's a Medicare, Medicaid I believe it's Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services requirement. But palliative care doesn't have to have that kind of a deadline in a sense. Palliative care can really help support somebody during that time when they're dealing with a serious illness, again, with symptom management, with support services, with actually helping to provide some communication among all their providers to help improve the quality of life. And for some of our palliative patients, they're under treatment, their issue, their illness, their disease resolves, and they're able to go off palliative care and continue on their lives, which is really wonderful too.
Well, going off of that, because I didn't even think about it, the difference, what else do you think listeners might need to be more aware of when it comes to end-of-life care?
I think so many people feel like it's giving up. And I really want to emphasize that it's not giving up. It is really choosing quality of life. And in choosing quality of life, many patients actually get increased quantity as well. There are a number of studies that will show that a patient on hospice care often will live longer than a patient with similar symptoms and similar prognosis not on hospice care. I think some of that is the symptom management, but I also think a lot of it is the support you get, the support your family and friends get. That's just so important in really making the most and making the best of that time.
I'm sure some of our listeners will also want to get involved with Pathways in other ways, possibly through donations or volunteering. How can they go about that?
So both information is on our website. We love volunteers, and actually we'll have a volunteer orientation coming up in October. So I encourage anybody who is interested in volunteering, again, to go to our website, www.pathways-care.org, and click on the volunteer link. It'll have more information about how to do that. And it's often a good chance. It's good to reach out ahead of the orientation to get a better sense of what's involved. But we have volunteers helping with everything from in the office, greeting people at the front desk, helping to make calls to families and patients, making sure that they don't have any questions, that they're getting the support they need, to office support, to being essentially spending time with the patient, to we also have some volunteers who are pet therapy teams. So it is kind of fun when the canine member of the pet therapy teams come into the office. I mean, there's so many ways that people can get involved and help. We have some volunteers who do things like make phone calls to follow up on some of our vintage affair silent auction items to solicit for that. It just runs the gamut of support. So it's really, volunteering is incredibly important. Financial support really matters. And the financial support, especially now for the inpatient care center, is really important. We are in the midst of an $8 million capital campaign. We're nudging up on the $2 million mark. So I'm really excited about that. And people can support again by going to our website, www.pathways-care.org, and they can click on the donate button, and there are a variety of ways to support there. If they want to make a gift in memory of somebody that they know who's passed away, they can do that on the website as well. They're also more than welcome to call. People can always call us, 970-663-3500.
Perfect. Well, I know I'm so excited, and I'm sure our listeners are excited for a vintage affair. But do you have any other events coming up this year that you'd like to talk about?
So another one that's coming up a little bit faster than a vintage affair is our annual Summer Memorial and Butterfly Release. So we did do this event last year, but it was virtual. Yes, sort of as so many other things. But this year it is going to be live in person, and it'll be the Windsong Event Center Saturday, August 28th at 10:30 a.m. And this is an opportunity for people to come together to remember our loved ones. For some, it's loved ones who have passed away in the past year. For many of us, it's folks we've lost even before then. And if you want to purchase a butterfly for release, you can also do that on our website, pathways-care.org, and click on events and go to the Summer Memorial and Butterfly Release. Butterflies are $15 a piece. I think I forgot to mention that the ticket price for a vintage affair is $80 a person. So the butterfly release will be wonderful. And just a reminder for people who haven't been to the Windsong Estates Event Center, it is up on the corner of Highway 14 and 257. So if you just take Main Street out of Windsor and go north, you'll get to it when you get to Highway 14. And if you take Mulberry, Highway 14 out of Fort Collins, you'll reach it when you get to 257. It's a beautiful location. I think it'll just be a really lovely opportunity and a nice setting to remember people. We normally do this event at our location on Carpenter Road, but guess what? Construction of the inpatient care center is preventing us from doing it there this year.
Well, a good thing all in all.
Yes, exactly.
Definitely. Well, thank you, Judy, so much for coming in and talking to me today. Is there anything else you would like listeners to know?
Emily, I think you've covered so much of it. Again, if listeners are interested in joining us for a vintage affair, that is Sunday, September 12th from 5 to 7 p.m., and tickets can be purchased at our website, www.pathways-care.org.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Judy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Again, that was Judy Calhoun, the Director of Development at Pathways, talking about their 19th annual A Vintage Affair event. Find out how to purchase tickets for the event at pathways-care.org.